I'm breaking up with you, Selina. Look at yourself. You're just too chubby to be on my arm anymore." Those words didn't just break her heart. They shattered her dignity in the middle of the busiest restaurant in Manhattan. Selina froze, waiting for the ground to swallow her whole. But the ground didn't move. Instead, the air in the room suddenly turned ice cold. A man in a dark, bespoke suit, a man everyone in the city feared, but no one dared to speak to, rose from the shadows of the corner booth. He walked over, placed a hand on the table, and looked her dead in the eye. "He calls it Chubby," the stranger said, his voice like velvet and gravel. "I call it perfect." And just like that, her life didn't just change. It became dangerous. The chandeliers at the Gilded Lily were so bright, they made Selina Jenkins' headache worse. It was their 2-year anniversary, and she had spent 3 hours getting ready. She had curled her honey blonde hair, put on the emerald green dress Greg used to say he loved, and even squeezed into the shapewear that made it hard to breathe, just to smooth out the curves he had recently started glancing at with disdain. Across the table, Greg Miller was scrolling through his phone. He hadn't looked at her since the appetizers arrived. Greg was a junior partner at a hedge fund, a man who treated his life like a portfolio. Everything had to be high yield and visually impressive. Lately, Selina felt like a stock he was looking to dump. "Greg?" Selina asked softly, reaching across the white tablecloth to touch his hand. He pulled his hand away to pick up his wine glass. "What, Selina? I'm trying to answer an email from the London office." "It's our anniversary," she whispered, the humiliation already heating her cheeks. A couple at the next table, looking painfully thin and fashionable, glanced over. "I thought we could talk." Greg sighed, a long, exaggerated exhalation of air that signaled his patience was at 0. He set the phone down, screen up, and looked at her. Really looked at her. But it wasn't with love. His eyes scanned her face, dropped to her neck, and lingered on the soft curve of her arms resting on the table. "Fine, let's talk," Greg said, his voice devoid of warmth. "Actually, I'm glad you brought it up, because this isn't working for me anymore." Selina felt her stomach drop. "What do you mean?" "Look, Selina, I'm moving up in the firm. I have dinners to host, galas to attend. Image is everything in my world." He gestured vaguely at her, his hand waving around her upper body. "You've let yourself go." I gained 10 pounds, Greg. It's been a stressful year with my dad getting sick," Selina stammered, tears pricking her eyes. "I'm working on it." "It's not just 10 pounds, it's the vibe. You're chubby, Selina, and frankly, it's embarrassing." The word hung in the air like a slap. Chubby. He didn't say it affectionately. He said it like a slur, like a disease. Selina gripped her napkin. "You loved my curves when we met." "That was college. This is the real world," Greg snapped, his voice rising. He didn't care who heard. In fact, he seemed to enjoy the power trip. "I need someone who fits the part. Someone who looks like they belong in a size 2, not someone who looks like they ate the size 2. The restaurant went quiet around them. The clinking of silverware seemed to pause. Selina looked down at her lap, fighting the urge to run. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction of a scene. She would take it, walk out, and never look back. But Greg wasn't done. He leaned in, a cruel smirk playing on his lips. "Honestly, I'm doing you a favor. No one else is going to tell you the truth. You should skip dessert, maybe skip the next few meals too." Selina stood up, her legs shaking. "I'm leaving." "Sit down," Greg commanded, grabbing her wrist. "I haven't paid the check. You're not walking out on me while I'm talking." "Let go of me, Greg." I said, "Sit down. You're making a scene. and you look ridiculous." Selina struggled against his grip, her heart hammering against her ribs. She looked around for help, but the waiters were studiously looking away, terrified of intervening in a domestic dispute between wealthy patrons. That was when the silence in the room shifted. It wasn't the silence of awkwardness anymore. It was the silence of fear. From the far corner booth, the one reserved for VIPs that usually sat empty, a man stood up. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with broad shoulders that strained the fabric of a suit that cost more than Selina's car. He had dark hair, slicked back, and a scar running faintly through his left eyebrow. He didn't walk, he prowled. He moved through the tables with a predatory grace, his eyes locked on Greg's hand around Selina's wrist. The air pressure in the room seemed to drop. The manager, a nervous man named Henri, took a step forward to intercept him, but stopped dead when the man held up a single finger. The man stopped at their table. He loomed over Greg, casting a long shadow that swallowed the candlelight. "I believe," the man said, his voice a deep, resonant baritone that vibrated in Selina's chest. "The lady asked you to let go." Greg looked up, annoyed. He clearly didn't recognize the danger standing above him. "This is a private conversation, pal. Beat it." The man didn't blink. He didn't shout. He simply reached out and placed his hand on Greg's shoulder. He squeezed. Greg's face went from annoyed to white-hot pain in a second. He gasped, his grip on Selina loosening immediately. "I don't like repeating myself," the stranger said calmly. "And I really don't like men who touch women without permission." Greg yanked his hand back, cradling his shoulder. The arrogance was draining out of him, replaced by the primal fear of a smaller animal, realizing it has provoked a lion. "Do you know who I am?" Greg sputtered, trying to regain some ground. "I'm a partner at Sterling and Finch. I can buy and sell you." The stranger laughed. It was a dark, dry sound. "Sterling and Finch?" He looked at Selina, a faint amusement in his eyes. "He thinks he has money." The stranger turned his gaze back to Greg. His eyes were the color of espresso, dark and intense, but there was a fire behind them that terrified Selina. "My name is Lorenzo Moretti, but my friends call me Enzo." The blood drained from Greg's face so fast he looked like a ghost. Even Selina, who avoided the news, knew that name. The Moretti family. They didn't just own construction companies and shipping lines. They owned the city's underground. They were the reason certain buildings got built and others burned down. Mr. Moretti," Greg stammered. I didn't realize. We were just having a disagreement. It's my girlfriend. She's emotional." Enzo looked at Selina. He didn't look at her with the critical, dissecting gaze Greg had used. He looked at her with a heavy, intense appreciation. He took in the green dress, the flush on her cheeks, the soft curve of her hips. "She's not your girlfriend," Enzo said. "Not anymore." He turned back to Greg. "And I heard what you said to her, about her weight." Greg laughed nervously, thinking he found common ground. "Oh, you know how it is, just trying to encourage her to hit the gym. She's gotten a little heavy. A man like you understands standards." Enzo's expression didn't change, but the temperature around them seemed to drop another 10 degrees. He leaned down, placing both hands on the table, bringing his face inches from Greg's. "Standards," Enzo whispered. "You sit there in a cheap suit, with a weak chin and a heart full of garbage, judging a work of art?" Selina's breath hitched. "A work of art?" Enzo straightened up and looked at Selina again. He extended a hand toward her. It was large, calloused but steady as a rock. "He calls you Chubby," Enzo said, loud enough for the hushed room to hear. "He sees a flaw, But I look at you, and I see a woman who enjoys life. I see softness where the world is hard. I see beauty. He took a step closer to her, invading her personal space, smelling of expensive cologne, tobacco, and danger. "You're perfect," he said. Selina felt a tear finally escape, rolling down her cheek. She wasn't crying because of Greg anymore. She was crying because, for the first time in years, she felt seen. "Come with me," Enzo said. It wasn't a question. "Selina, don't you dare!" Greg hissed, though he was cowering in his seat. "If you leave with him, don't bother coming back to the apartment. You're done." Enzo didn't even look at Greg. He snapped his fingers. Two men in dark suits materialized from the entrance of the restaurant. "Escort this trash outside," Enzo ordered, pointing at Greg, "and teach him some manners. He seems to have forgotten how to speak to a lady." "Wait, no!" Greg shrieked as the two men hoisted him out of his chair by his armpits. "You can't do this! I'm a partner! Selina!" Greg was dragged out the front door, his protests silenced by the heavy oak doors closing. The restaurant was deadly silent. Everyone was watching Selina and Enzo. "My car is outside," Enzo said, his voice softer now, meant only for her. "I'm not going to hurt you, Selina. But I can't leave you here alone. Not after that." Selina looked at the empty chair where Greg had sat. Then she looked at the man who had just dismantled her ex-boyfriend's life in under 2 minutes. She knew she should be afraid. Her brain was screaming at her to run. Lorenzo Moretti was a dangerous man, a criminal, a killer, probably. But when she looked into his eyes, she didn't see a killer. She saw a shield. "Okay," she whispered. Enzo offered his arm. "Shall we?" Selina looped her arm through his. He felt like solid steel beneath the wool of his suit. As they walked through the restaurant, not a single person spoke. The manager bowed his head as they passed. Outside, the rain was pouring down, reflecting the neon lights of the city. A sleek, black armored SUV was waiting at the curb, the back door already held open by a driver. Enzo helped her in, protecting her head from the rain with his hand. As he slid in beside her, and the door clicked shut, the silence of the luxury vehicle enveloped them. "Where to?" the driver asked. Enzo looked at Selina. "Where do you live? Not the apartment with the idiot. Is there somewhere else?" My sister's place, in Brooklyn," Selina managed to say. "But I don't have my phone, or my purse. Greg has them." Enzo pulled a phone from his pocket and typed a quick message. "Your purse will be delivered to your sister's house within the hour, along with Greg's apology." Selina looked at him, wide-eyed. "You didn't have to do that." Enzo turned in his seat to face her fully. In the dim light of the car, his scars looked deeper, his face more rugged. "I didn't do it for him. I did it because I've been watching you for a long time, Selina Jenkins." A chill ran down her spine. "Watching me? What do you mean?" Enzo smiled, and for the first time, it reached his eyes. "I own the bakery where you buy your morning coffee. Sweet Nothings, right? You come in every Tuesday and Thursday at 8:15 a.m. You order a cinnamon twist and a black coffee. You sit by the window and sketch." Selina gasped. How do you know that?" "Because," Enzo said, his voice dropping to a murmur. "It's the highlight of my week. I sit in the back office, watching the security feed, just to see you smile at the barista." He reached out, his thumb brushing away the tear track on her cheek. "I never thought I'd have a reason to talk to you. I thought you were happy with that suit." His eyes darkened. "If I had known he treated you like that, I would have stepped in a long time ago." Selina's heart pounded. This was madness. The Mafia boss of New York had a crush on her? Because she bought pastries at his bakery? "Why me?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I'm just me. I'm chubby. I'm clumsy. I'm nobody. Enzo leaned in, his lips inches from her ear. To a starving man, Selina, a loaf of bread is worth more than gold. In my world, everyone is plastic. Everyone is fake. You are real, and I'm not letting you go. The car merged onto the bridge, the city lights blurring behind them. Selina realized with a start that she didn't want him to let her go. But she had no idea that by getting into this car, she had just placed a target on her back, because Enzo Moretti had enemies. And now, his enemies had a new way to hurt him. Her. The ride to Brooklyn was a blur of neon lights and rain-streaked windows. Selina sat stiffly against the leather seat, acutely aware of the space between her and Enzo. He didn't touch her again, but his presence was a physical weight, heavy, protective, and terrifying. When the black SUV pulled up to the curb of the modest brownstone where her sister, Chloe, lived, the driver hopped out with an umbrella before Selina could even reach for the handle. Enzo turned to her. In the flashing lights of a passing patrol car, his face was illuminated. He looked tired, the lines around his eyes deepening. "Keep this," Enzo said, pressing a sleek, heavy smartphone into her hand. It wasn't her phone. "It's encrypted. My number is the only one saved in it. If you need anything, if you see him, you press the speed dial. Do you understand?" Selina nodded, her throat dry. "Thank you. For everything. You didn't have to ruin your night for me." Enzo's lips quirked into a ghost of a smile. "Selina, tonight was the first time in 10 years I felt like I was doing something right. Go inside. Lock the door." He waited on the sidewalk, rain pelting his expensive suit, watching until she was safely inside the building. Only when the lobby light flickered on did the SUV pull away, disappearing into the dark artery of the city. Inside the apartment, Chloe was waiting. She was the opposite of Selina. Sharp angles, dyed red hair, and a temperament that matched. She took one look at Selina's tear-stained face and the ruined mascara, and pulled her into a hug. "I knew it," Chloe muttered into Selina's hair. "I knew that superficial leech would hurt you. Did he dump you?" "It's worse," Selina sniffled, pulling back and walking into the tiny kitchen to pour a glass of water. "He told me I was too chubby to be seen with him, in the middle of the Gilded Lily." Chloe's jaw dropped. "He said what? Hold my earrings, I'm going to kill him." "You don't have to," Selina said, a strange, hysterical giggle bubbling up in her chest. "Someone else already handled it." "Who?" "Lorenzo Moretti." Chloe froze. The glass she was holding slipped from her hand and shattered on the linoleum floor. "Enzo Moretti? The Don? Selina, tell me you are joking. Tell me you did not get into a car with the butcher of Brooklyn." He was nice, Chloe. He stood up for me. He made Greg let me go." "He's a shark, Selina. Sharks aren't nice. They just haven't bitten you yet." Chloe began pacing the small living room. "You have to stay away from him. Men like that don't do favors for free." Selina looked down at the black phone in her hand. It felt warm, like it was still holding Enzo's body heat. "He said I was perfect," she whispered, more to herself than to her sister. The next morning, the reality of her situation hit Selina like a freight train. She woke up on Chloe's couch with a stiff neck. When she checked her bank app on the burner phone, after downloading it, her heart stopped. Balance. 0 teudodosisura. Greg. He had drained their joint savings account. Every penny she had saved for the last 3 years, gone. Panic clawed at her throat. She had rent to pay on her own apartment, which she surely couldn't go back to now. Bills, student loans. She was destitute. Then the doorbell rang. Chloe, wearing an oversized t-shirt, looked through the peephole and gasped. She turned to Selina, eyes wide. "There are 2 men outside. They look like refrigerators in suits." Selina's stomach flipped. She went to the door and opened it a crack. 2 massive men stood there. One held a garment bag, the other a white box from Sweet Nothing's bakery. "Miss Jenkins," the first man said, nodding respectfully. "Mr. Moretti thought you might be hungry, and he assumed you wouldn't want to wear yesterday's clothes to work." Selina took the items, stunned. Is he here?" "The boss is in a meeting. We are your detail for the day." "My detail?" "We don't leave your side, miss, until the threat is neutralized." Selina closed the door and leaned against it. Neutralized. The word sounded so violent. She opened the white box. Inside were 2 cinnamon twists, her favorite, and a note written on heavy cream-colored cardstock. The handwriting was jagged, aggressive, but elegant. "Eat. You need your strength. Don't worry about the money. The bank made a clerical error regarding your ex-boyfriend's withdrawal. It will be returned with interest by noon." As Selina opened the garment bag, it wasn't just clothes, it was a wardrobe. A soft cashmere sweater in a dusty rose color, tailored black trousers that looked comfortable yet professional, and a pair of Italian leather boots. They were her size, exactly her size. "He really has been watching you," Chloe whispered, looking over Selina's shoulder, terrified and awed. "Selina, this is Pretty Woman stuff, but with guns." Selina touched the cashmere. For so long, Greg had tried to squeeze her into tight, structured clothes that pinched and hid her body. These clothes, they were designed to embrace it. "I have to go to work," Selina said, her voice trembling but determined. She worked as an assistant curator at the Vallow Gallery in Chelsea. It was her dream job, and she wouldn't let Greg or the Mafia take it from her. "I'm going with you," Chloe said. "No, you stay here. I'll be safe." Selina gestured to the door. "I apparently have an army." Greg Miller was not having a good day. He had woken up in a dumpster behind the Gilded Lily, his expensive suit stained with garbage juice, and his shoulder throbbing where Moretti had nearly crushed the bone. His wallet was gone. His phone was smashed. He had managed to limp to his office at Sterling and Finch by 8 a.m., intending to spin a story about a mugging. But when he tried to swipe his keycard, the light turned red. Access denied. 2 security guards, men he had never bothered to learn the names of, stepped out. One held a cardboard box containing Greg's personal effects. "Mr. Miller," the head of security said coldly, "the partners have voted to terminate your contract, effective immediately. Morals clause." "What? You can't do this!" Greg screamed, spit flying. "I bring in millions." "You offended a very important client, Mr. Miller, a client who owns the building this firm operates in." Greg felt the blood drain from his face. "Moretti? He owned the building?" Greg grabbed his box and stumbled onto the sidewalk. He was ruined. No job, no status. And it was all Selina's fault. If she hadn't been so sensitive, if she had just lost the weight, none of this would have happened. Rage, hot and blinding, took over. He needed leverage. He needed to make Moretti back off. And he knew exactly how. Meanwhile, at the Vallow Gallery, Selina was trying to focus on cataloguing a new shipment of modern sculptures. But it was hard to concentrate when 2 men in suits were standing silently by the front entrance, scaring away the tourists. Her boss, an eccentric French woman named Madame Vallow, didn't seem to mind. In fact, she seemed thrilled. "It adds intrigue," Vallow purred, adjusting her glasses. "People think we have something very valuable here. It is good for business." "I'm sorry, madam," Selina apologized, arranging a display. "My ex-boyfriend is unstable. A friend is helping with security." "This friend?" Vallow smirked. "He is the dangerous-looking man who called me this morning and bought the $50,000 abstract painting. The one you liked? Selina froze. He bought the Crimson Tide. He said to hang it in your office. He thinks the red brings out your eyes. Selina felt a blush creep up her neck. This was getting out of hand. She needed to talk to Enzo. She needed to tell him he couldn't just buy her life. At lunch, Selina stepped out to grab a sandwich. Her detail followed at a respectful distance of 10 feet. She turned the corner onto a quieter street, reaching for her phone to call Enzo. Suddenly, a hand shot out from an alleyway, grabbing her arm and yanking her into the shadows. Selina screamed, but a hand clamped over her mouth. "Shut up! Shut up, or I swear to God I'll hurt you!" It was Greg, but he looked deranged. His eyes were bloodshot, his hair wild, and he smelled of trash and sour sweat. "Greg?" Selina gasped as he removed his hand. "What are you doing?" "You ruined me," he hissed, pinning her against the brick wall. "I lost my job. I lost everything. You think you can just waltz away with a gangster and leave me in the dirt?" "You left me, Greg," Selina shouted back, finding a courage she didn't know she had. "You humiliated me, and now you're hurting me." "I need money, Selina. I need you to get him to pay me. A settlement. For my pain and suffering." He pulled a small switchblade from his pocket. It shook in his hand. "Call him. Now." Before Selina could answer, the air shifted. Greg's eyes widened as he looked over Selina's shoulder. He expected the 2 bodyguards. But it wasn't the bodyguards. A black sedan screeched to a halt at the mouth of the alley. 3 men jumped out. They weren't wearing the sharp, tailored suits of Moretti's men. They wore leather jackets and gold chains. They looked rougher, meaner. One of them, a man with a broken nose, stepped forward. He ignored Selina and looked straight at Greg. "Greg Miller?" the man asked. Yes?" Greg stammered, lowering the knife. "Are you with Moretti? I want to make a deal." The man laughed. It sounded like gravel in a blender. "Moretti? Nah, we don't work for that stronzo. We work for Daniel Hayes." Selina's blood ran cold. Even she knew that name. The Hayes and the Morettis had been at war since the 90s. "Hayes?" Greg asked, confused. "Word on the street is you have a beef with Enzo Moretti," the man said, stepping closer. "And Mr. Hayes, he loves anyone who hates Enzo. He wants to have a chat with you." "A chat?" Greg's greed instantly overtook his fear. "Does he pay?" "Oh, he pays well." The man looked at Selina. His eyes raked over her. "And who is this? The girlfriend?" "She's nothing," Greg spat, pushing Selina away so hard she stumbled. "She's just the bait Moretti is biting on." The man with the broken nose smiled, revealing a gold tooth. "Bait, huh? We like bait." He lunged, but not at Greg. He grabbed Selina. "No!" Selina screamed, thrashing against his grip. "Hey, we had a deal!" Greg shouted. "I come with you. You leave her." "Change of plans," the thug said, dragging Selina toward the sedan. "We take the girl. Moretti will come for her. And you." He nodded to his accomplices. "You bring the idiot. He can tell us everything he knows about Moretti's operation." Suddenly, shots rang out. Bang! Bang! The thug holding Selina grunted and collapsed, clutching his leg. Selina fell to the pavement, scraping her hands. Enzo's bodyguards had arrived. They were sprinting down the alley, guns drawn, firing with precision. "Get in the car!" the thug screamed to his driver, abandoning Selina. He scrambled into the sedan on one leg. His accomplices grabbed Greg, threw him into the back seat, and the car peeled away, tires smoking. Selina lay on the wet asphalt, shaking uncontrollably. The chaos had lasted less than 30 seconds. One of Enzo's guards, the older one named Marco, knelt beside her. He holstered his weapon and spoke into an earpiece. "Boss, we secured the girl. But Hayes's men, they took Miller." "Yeah, It's messy. Marco looked at Selina, his expression grave. You okay, miss? They took him, Selina whispered, shock setting in. They took Greg. Better him than you, Marco said grimly. But this is bad. If Hayes has Miller, and Miller knows about you, nowhere is safe. A sleek black car roared up to the curb moments later. The door flew open before it even stopped moving. Enzo Moretti stepped out. He wasn't wearing his suit jacket. His sleeves were rolled up, revealing tattoos on his forearms that Selina had never seen. He looked terrifying. He looked like war. He ran to her, dropping to his knees on the dirty ground, not caring about his pants. He grabbed her face in his hands, scanning her for injuries. "Did they touch you?" he demanded, his voice shaking with a rage so palpable it felt like heat. "Selina, look at me. Did they hurt you?" I scraped my hand," she stammered. "Enzo, they took Greg. They said I was bait." Enzo's eyes went pitch black. He pulled her into his chest, wrapping his arms around her so tightly she could barely breathe. He buried his face in her neck, inhaling her scent, grounding himself. "I tried to keep you out of this," he rasped. "I tried to keep it clean, but they crossed the line." He stood up, pulling her up with him effortlessly. He turned to Marco. "Burn the gallery," Enzo said calmly. "What?" Selina shrieked. "No, you can't burn the gallery. Madame Vallo is in there." Enzo looked at her, his eyes softening slightly. "Not with her inside, amore. But you can't work there anymore. Hayes knows where you are. Your life as Selina Jenkins, the assistant curator. It's over." "Then who am I?" she asked, tears streaming down her face. Enzo opened the car door and ushered her inside. He leaned in, his hand resting on the doorframe, his silhouette framing the grey sky. "Now," he looked at her with a mix of possessiveness and adoration. "Now you're mine, fully, and I am going to burn down the entire city to get back what they took from me." "They took Greg," Selina reminded him. "I don't care about Greg," Enzo growled. "They took my peace of mind, and for that, Daniel Hayes is going to die." As the car sped away, Selina looked out the window. She saw the police sirens approaching in the distance. She realized with a sinking heart that she wasn't just dating a bad boy. She was the queen on a chessboard, and the game had just turned deadly. The car ride lasted an hour, heading north out of the city and into the winding, wooded roads of the Hudson Valley. Selina didn't ask where they were going. She just watched the rain slash against the reinforced glass, her hand resting in Enzo's. He hadn't let go of her since they got in the car. They turned onto a private road, passing through iron gates that were 10 feet tall and manned by armed guards. The estate that came into view was less of a house and more of a modern fortress. Stone, glass, and steel jutted out from the cliffside, overlooking the turbulent river below. "Welcome home," Enzo said quietly, as the car pulled into a subterranean garage filled with luxury vehicles. "Home," Selina repeated, her voice hollow. "I don't belong here, Enzo. I'm an assistant curator who lives in a walk-up. I clip coupons." Enzo stepped out and opened her door. He reached in, unbuckled her seatbelt, and lifted her chin so she had to look at him. "You belong where I am," he said, with a finality that brooked no argument. Inside, the house was warm, smelling of cedar and leather. It was immaculately decorated, but felt lonely. Enzo led her to a master suite that was larger than her entire apartment. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the storm. "There are clothes in the dressing room. Everything is new. Everything has been washed," Enzo said, standing by the door. He looked like he wanted to come in, but he held himself back. "Take a shower. Wash off the city. I'll make dinner." Selina stood alone in the room for a moment, trembling. She walked into the dressing room and gasped. It was filled with racks of clothes, silks, cashmeres, velvets, and not just sample sizes. It was all curated for her body type. She stripped off her dirty clothes and stepped into the massive stone shower. As the hot water hit her skin, she finally broke down. She cried for the loss of her normal life, for the fear of the alleyway, and for the confusing, overwhelming feelings she had for a man who could order a building to be burned down without blinking. When she emerged, wrapped in a plush robe, she found a simple silk slip dress in a deep burgundy hanging on the door hook. It was elegant, soft, and unforgiving. She hesitated, looking at her reflection. She saw the soft curve of her stomach, the fullness of her arms. Greg's voice echoed in her head. Chubby. Embarrassing. She almost reached for a towel to cover up, but then she remembered Enzo's eyes in the restaurant. Perfect. She put on the dress. She found Enzo in the kitchen. He had discarded his holster and his dress shirt, wearing only a black t-shirt that clung to his chest. He was chopping garlic with the same precision he used to dismantle his enemies. "You cook?" Selina asked, leaning against the marble island. Enzo looked up, and the knife stopped moving. His eyes darkened as they swept over her. He didn't say a word for a long 10 seconds. He just drank her in. "For you, I'd learn to fly," he murmured. "Sit. Drink." He poured her a glass of heavy red wine. They ate in the kitchen, not the formal dining room. He made pasta carbonara, rich, creamy, and decadent. Selina took a bite, closing her eyes at the taste. "This is amazing. But Greg would kill me. The carbs alone." Enzo slammed his fork down. The sound echoed in the large room. "Greg is a worm," Enzo growled. "He spent 2 years making you feel small so he could feel big. Do not bring his ghost into my kitchen, Selina." He stood up and walked around the island. He stood behind her chair, his hands resting on her shoulders. His thumbs rubbed circles into her tense muscles. "You are not chubby, Selina," he whispered into her ear, his breath hot against her skin. "You are opulent. You are the kind of woman Renaissance painters would have killed to paint. When I hold you, I want to feel a woman, not a bag of antlers." Selina turned in her chair to face him. "But this world, your world, it's dangerous. People get hurt." "I protect what is mine," Enzo said, leaning down to capture her lips. The kiss wasn't gentle, it was possessive. It tasted of wine and desperation. Selina's hands found their way into his hair, pulling him closer. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel self-conscious. She didn't worry about sucking in her stomach or angling her face. She just felt wanted. Consumed. Enzo swept her up into his arms, carrying her out of the kitchen. "Tonight you forget him. Tonight you forget the fear. Tonight you are just Selina, and I am just Enzo." For a few hours, amidst the storm outside, Selina forgot that she was a target. She forgot that a war was brewing. But while they slept in the safety of the fortress, miles away in a damp warehouse in Queens, the war was getting louder. Greg Miller was weeping. He was tied to a wooden chair in the center of an empty warehouse. His nose was broken, and his expensive suit was ruined. Standing in front of him was Daniel Hayes. Hayes was shorter than Enzo, with a shaved head and a smile that looked like a jagged scar. He was eating an apple, slicing pieces off with a hunting knife. "Please," Greg sobbed. "I don't know anything. I'm just an accountant. I handle portfolios." "You dated her for 2 years," Hayes said, chewing noisily. "You must know something. Does Enzo have a safe in the bedroom? Does he have a weakness?" "I don't know Enzo," Greg shrieked. "I only met him tonight. He stole my girlfriend." Hayes paused. He stepped closer, the knife tip hovering near Greg's eye. "He didn't just steal her, amico. He decimated his own security protocols to get her. He burned a gallery just to hide her trail. That means she isn't just a girlfriend. She's the weakness. Hayes grabbed Greg's chin. Now, think carefully. Selina Jenkins. Who does she love? Who does she talk to? If I can't get to Enzo directly, I need to make him come to me. Greg's mind raced. He wanted to go home. He wanted his life back. And he hated Selina. He hated her for getting rescued while he got kidnapping. He hated her for landing a billionaire mob boss while he was fired. Her sister, Greg sputtered. Chloe. Hayes raised an eyebrow. Go on. Chloe Jenkins. She lives in Brooklyn. They're inseparable. Selina would do anything for her. If you have Chloe, Selina will come. And if Selina comes, Moretti will follow. Hayes smiled. It was a terrifying sight. See? That wasn't so hard. He turned to his men. Go get the sister. Bring her here. And keep this idiot alive. I might need him to make the call. The next morning at the fortress, the sun was shining, betraying the horror of the previous night. Selina woke up alone in the massive bed. She found a note on the pillow. Meeting with the captains. There is coffee on the terrace. I'll be back in an hour. Selina put on the silk robe and wandered out to the terrace. The view was breathtaking. She felt a strange sense of calm. Maybe this could work. Maybe she could be safe here. Then, the burner phone Enzo had given her buzzed. She frowned. Enzo said only he had the number, but Enzo was downstairs. She answered it. Hello? Selina. The voice was jagged, broken. It was Greg. Greg? Selina gripped the railing. Where are you? Are you okay? They have me, Selina. Hayes. Oh God, they're going to kill me. Who has you? Tell me where you are. I'll tell Enzo. No, don't tell Enzo, Greg screamed. If you tell Enzo, they'll kill me immediately. They want to trade, Selina. Just a conversation. They want to talk to you. I can't, Greg. I can't leave here. It's not just me, Selina. Greg's voice dropped to a whimper. They went to Brooklyn. They have Chloe. The world stopped. The bird song faded. The warmth of the sun vanished. What did you say? Selina whispered. They have Chloe, Greg cried. I'm looking at her right now. She's tied up. She's bleeding, Selina. They said if you don't come to the shipyard in Queens by noon, they're going to cut her throat. Let me talk to her, Selina screamed. There was a scuffle on the line, and then a muffled, terrified voice. Selina, don't come. It's a trap. Run. Then the sound of a slap and a cry of pain. Hayes's voice came on the line, smooth, cold, metallic. Hello, Bella. You have a very loud sister. Bring yourself to Pier 41, alone, no guards, no Moretti. If I see one black SUV, the sister dies. If you're late, the sister dies. You have 2 hours. The line went dead. Selina dropped the phone. It clattered onto the stone terrace. Chloe. She looked at the glass doors leading back into the house. Enzo was down there. He had an army. He could save them. But Hayes had said no Moretti. If Enzo showed up, Chloe was dead. Selina knew enough about these men now to know they didn't bluff. She had to go. Alone. But how? The place was a fortress. Guards were everywhere. Selina ran back into the bedroom. She dressed frantically in the jeans and boots Enzo had bought her. She needed a weapon. She didn't know how to use a gun, but she needed something. She opened the drawer of the bedside table. There was a sleek, silver handgun there. She grabbed it, her hands shaking, and shoved it into her waistband. She needed a car. She remembered the garage. There were service tunnels. She had seen the blueprints in the hallway, framed like art. A service exit for the staff. She scribbled a note for Enzo. She didn't want him to think she ran away because she didn't love him. She needed him to know why. They have Chloe. I can't let her die. If I don't come back, know that you made me feel beautiful. She left the note on the bed and slipped out the side door. Using the confusion of a shift change among the guards, Selina managed to sneak into the back of a delivery truck, leaving the estate. As the truck rumbled through the gates, her heart was pounding so hard she thought it would explode. She was going to walk into a trap. She knew it. But for the first time in her life, Selina wasn't the chubby girl in the background. She wasn't the sidekick. She was the woman who had been loved by a king, and she would be damned if she let her sister die because of it. Enzo walked back into the bedroom 10 minutes later, a tray of breakfast in his hands. He was smiling. He was going to ask her to stay. Forever. "Selina, I made espresso," he called out. Silence. He frowned. He set the tray down and walked to the bathroom. Empty. Then he saw the note on the bed. He read it once, then twice. The roar that ripped from Enzo's throat shook the glass in the window frames. He didn't scream a name. He didn't throw things. He went instantly, terrifyingly still. He pulled out his phone and pressed a single button. "Marco," Enzo said, his voice void of all humanity. "Get the men. All of them." "Boss? What is it?" "Hayes took the bait," Enzo said, grabbing a heavy assault rifle from a hidden panel in the wall. "He took Selina." "We move on the shipyard?" "We don't just move," Enzo said, checking the chamber of the weapon. "We erase it from the map." Enzo walked out of the room, his face a mask of death. Greg Miller had thought he was playing a game. Daniel Hayes thought he had leverage. They were both wrong. They had just invited the devil to dinner, and he was bringing hell with him. The warehouse at Pier 41 smelled of rust, dead fish, and impending death. Rain hammered against the corrugated metal roof, creating a deafening roar that masked Selina's footsteps as she entered the main bay. She held her hands up, the cold steel of the gun digging into her hip bone, hidden beneath her sweater. "I'm here!" she screamed, her voice cracking. "Hayes, I'm here! Let them go!" A slow clap echoed from the catwalk above. Floodlights snapped on, blinding her. "Punctual!" Daniel Hayes called out. He was leaning over the railing, a cigar clamped between his teeth. And stupid. I like that combination. In the center of the room, tied to a pillar, was Chloe. She was bruised, duct tape over her mouth, eyes wide with terror. And standing next to her, unbound, holding a glass of scotch, was Greg. Selina froze. "Greg, you're not tied up." Greg took a sip of the drink, avoiding her eyes. "It's business, Selina. Just business. Daniel and I came to an arrangement. I help him get Enzo, and I get a finder's fee. Plus, I get my job back at the firm. They have accounts with the Hayes family." Selina felt bile rise in her throat. "You sold me? You sold my sister? For a job?" "You were holding me back, Selina," Greg snapped, his face twisting into an ugly snarl. "Look at you! You're a mess! You're dating a psychopath! I'm just trying to survive." "You're not surviving," Selina said, her voice dropping to a deadly calm. She realized then that she didn't love him. She didn't even hate him. She pitied him. He was small. "You're already dead, Greg. You just don't know it yet." Hayes laughed, descending the metal stairs. He was flanked by 6 armed men. "Touching reunion. Now call your boyfriend. Tell him to come alone, or I put a bullet in your sister's knee." Selina looked at Chloe. She looked at Greg. She moved her hand toward her waistband. "He's not coming," Selina lied. "I left him. He doesn't care about me. I'm just a fling." Hayes stopped in front of her. He backhanded her across the face. Selina tasted blood, but she didn't fall. "Don't lie to me," Hayes hissed. Men like Enzo Moretti don't burn down Manhattan for a fling. He pulled a gun and pointed it at Chloe's head. Call him. No need. A deep voice rumbled from the shadows. Everyone froze. The voice didn't come from the doors. It seemed to come from everywhere. You made one mistake, Daniel. Enzo's voice echoed, amplifying through the warehouse. You looked at the front door. Crash. The massive skylight above them shattered. 3 figures rappelled down on black ropes, moving with the speed of lightning. At the same time, the bay doors exploded inward, a heavily armored truck ramming through the metal like it was paper. Kill them! Hayes screamed, diving for cover behind a crate. Chaos erupted. Enzo landed on the catwalk, directly above Greg. He didn't use a gun. He vaulted over the railing, landing in a crouch before the man who had called Selina Chubby. Greg shrieked, dropping his scotch. Enzo, wait, I can explain. I was undercover. I was helping her. Enzo stood up, straightening his suit jacket. He looked at Greg with bored indifference. You are very loud, Enzo said. He punched Greg. It was a single, efficient blow to the jaw. A sickening crunch echoed, and Greg collapsed like a rag doll, unconscious before he hit the concrete. Selina, get down! Enzo roared, pulling 2 handguns from his holsters and opening fire on Hayes's men. Selina didn't freeze. She dove toward Chloe. Bullets sparked against the concrete floor around her. She ripped the tape off Chloe's mouth. Run! Selina screamed, untying Chloe's ropes with frantic fingers. Behind you! Chloe yelled. Selina spun around. One of Hayes's thugs was charging her with a knife. Selina fumbled for the gun in her waistband. She pulled it out, her hands shaking. She didn't have to fire. A knife flew through the air, embedding itself in the thug's shoulder. He howled and dropped. Enzo was there a second later, shoving Selina and Chloe behind the armored truck where Marco and the other guards were providing cover fire. Stay here! Enzo commanded, his eyes wild, his chest heaving. Don't move. Enzo, Hayes is getting away. Selina pointed. Daniel Hayes was sprinting toward a speedboat, docked at the rear of the warehouse, firing wildly behind him. Enzo looked at Selina. I have to end this. Go, she said, grabbing his lapel and pulling him down for a fierce, split-second kiss. Come back to me. Enzo turned and sprinted into the gunfire. Hayes was fumbling with the mooring rope of the boat. He looked up just as Enzo slowed to a walk 10 feet away. Hayes raised his gun, but it clicked empty. Hayes froze. He looked at the water, then at Enzo. We can make a deal, Moretti, Hayes pleaded, backing up to the edge of the pier. Territory, I'll give you the ports, 50-50 split. Enzo holstered his guns. He walked forward until he was face to face with his enemy. You touched her, Enzo said softly. She's just a girl. There are 1,000,000 girls. To you, Enzo said. To me, she is the world. Enzo kicked Hayes in the chest. It wasn't a martial arts move. It was a kick of pure disrespect. Hayes flew backward, flailing, and hit the dark, freezing water of the East River. Enzo watched him surface, sputtering. Help! I can't swim! The current! Enzo lit a cigarette, cupping his hands against the wind. He took a long drag, watching the man struggle against the relentless tide. Neither can I, Enzo said to the empty air. He turned his back and walked away. Inside the warehouse, silence had fallen. Hayes's men were either incapacitated or had fled. Selina was kneeling beside Chloe, hugging her tightly. Greg was starting to groan, waking up on the floor. He blinked, looking around. He saw Enzo walking toward him. Oh, God, Greg whimpered, trying to crawl backward. Please, I'll leave the city. I'll go to Ohio. You'll never see me again. Enzo stopped. He looked down at Greg, then looked at Selina. Selina, Enzo said. What do you want me to do with this? Selina stood up. She walked over to Greg. He looked pathetic. His suit was ruined, his face swollen, his dignity non-existent. She remembered how small he had made her feel, how he had poked at her waist, criticized her laugh, dimmed her light. "He said I was chubby," Selina said, her voice clear in the silent warehouse. "He said I was embarrassing." She looked at Enzo. "Let him go." Enzo raised an eyebrow. "Let him go?" "He has no job," Selina said, looking down at Greg. "No money, no friends, and he has to live the rest of his life knowing that he threw away the best thing that ever happened to him, only to be beaten by a man who treats me like a queen." She leaned down, whispering so only Greg could hear. "Living with your own failure is a worse punishment than death. Goodbye, Greg." She turned around and walked into Enzo's arms. Greg scrambled up and ran. He ran out into the rain, into the night, a broken man who would forever look over his shoulder, haunted by the shadow of the King of New York. 6 months later, the bell above the door of the Golden Crumb chimed. Selina wiped her hands on her apron and smiled. The bakery was bustling. The smell of cinnamon and fresh coffee filled the air. It was her bakery now, bought, renovated, and gifted to her by a silent partner who preferred to remain anonymous, though everyone knew who he was. The door opened, and the chatter in the shop quieted instantly. Enzo walked in. He was wearing a charcoal suit, looking as dangerous and devastating as ever. 2 bodyguards waited outside, but inside, he was just a man in love. He walked up to the counter, ignoring the line of stunned customers. "I'll have the usual," Enzo said, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "A black coffee?" Selina teased, leaning over the counter. "And a look at the owner," Enzo replied, reaching across to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. He didn't care who was watching. He didn't care about the cameras or the whispers. "You look beautiful, Selina," he said, his voice dropping to that velvet timbre that made her knees weak. "That apron fits you perfectly." Selina laughed, a full, joyous sound that filled the room. She wasn't a size 2. She never would be. She was soft and curvy and happy. "You're not so bad yourself, boss," she whispered. Enzo leaned over the counter and kissed her. It was a kiss of promise, a kiss that said, "I got you." As he pulled back, he grabbed a cinnamon twist from the display. "On the house?" he asked. "For you?" Selina smiled, her heart full. "For you, everything is free." Outside, the city rushed on, loud and chaotic. But inside the bakery, amidst the sugar and the warmth, Selina Jenkins was safe. She had found a love that didn't ask her to shrink, but demanded she take up space. And it was, in a word, perfect. And that is the story of how a cruel comment in a restaurant led to a love story that burned down half of New York City. Selina learned that her worth wasn't defined by a dress size, but by the content of her character. And sometimes it takes a bad guy to show you what a good man really looks like. Greg is still out there somewhere, running from his own shadow. But Selina and Enzo, they're ruling the city, one cinnamon twist at a time. What did you think of Enzo's reaction? Would you have forgiven Greg, or would you have let Enzo handle him? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new story. I post new drama and romance every week. Thanks for watching, and stay perfect.